To have him on. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning, Bill. Good to be with you.
Thanks so much for coming on. Of course, we're up here not too far from New York City, and on that day when 9/11 hit, it hit us. I mean, it was so close to home. I mean, that just that has had such an effect on all of us that day.
Absolutely. It had a ripple effect throughout the world. We're still obviously paying the price for it. Just in sheer dollar terms, it probably cost the world about $1 trillion. All the security regimens that we go through were basically started as a result of 9/11. So
yeah.
It had a major impact on all of our lives. And of course, what we want to do is to prevent another 9/11 from happening in any possible way we can.
That is the challenge, and of course we're now post-Paris, and that has started a whole new worry. ISIS is saying, completely different terrorist organizations saying that they're going to target big cities like New York City, but in particular Washington, D.C. How do we prevent? I mean, is it a matter of how do we prevent, or something's going to happen eventually? What are your thoughts? Is one going to come eventually?
Well, there's no question about it. They're going to continue to try.
Yeah.
Come to the United States, and New York, in the consensus of the intelligence world, is the #1 target in the United States because it's seen as the cultural capital, communications capital, financial capital of the world. So I think you're going to see attempts. Yes, whether or not they succeed, we'll see. New York has done more than any other city probably in the world to protect itself. Of course, we had two horrendous attacks here. The 1993 attack, the events of September 11th. So New York has invested more than any place else. But it's an open city, and you have about 10 million people a day here on a business week. So it's a very big challenge.
I read that you, and referring to Mayor de Blasio's decision to end stop and frisk, you say that actually is the cause, that was a wrong move, and was the cause for the murder rate and the crime rate to increase in New York City. And if that's the case, what do you think about about the NSA and doing their big sweeps? And that, of course, is coming to an end. Talk about that, and kind of bordering on infringing on the rights, but at the same time keeping the world a safe place.
Yeah, look, we're all concerned about privacy. There's no question about it. But I think the NSA program was reasonable. It was voted for by Congress. It was hidden.
Yeah.
The Patriot Act, of course, was voted right after 9/11. I think the notion that somehow the telephone companies can be better trusted than the government to protect information is, in a way, ludicrous. What has happened with this PRISM program, I think was the name of it, was that all that information has now been left in the phone companies, and the federal government has to go through a series of hoops to get this information, which would have been much more easily obtained. And all it was, or is telephone numbers. In other words, you're able to tell if the number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 calls another number, and then you have to go through legal maneuvers to get more information, warrants, that sort of thing.
Sure, yeah.
So that is really a result, I think, of the Snowden revelations. Congress wanted to do something, the administration wanted to do something. I don't think this is particularly wise, but in fact it has been done.
Well, it's funny that we Congress had no problem with this surveillance until it became an issue, and we read the polls today. We're gonna have to jump on this and react. But specifically in New York City, the stop and frisk was really important. I mean, you believe was very important in curbing crime and possibly preventing a terrorist attack, right?
Well, it's important to every police officer. It's done throughout New York State. It's done throughout the United States. It's from the common law. It's validated by a Supreme Court case, Terry versus Ohio. It's codified. In other words, it's on the books in every state in the union. And it says police officers can inquire when they have a reasonable suspicion of what's going on. And I think it has led to a rise in violence in New York City and in other cities. New York Times wrote an article had an article about a month ago on the front page that said murder was up in 30 cities throughout America. And I believe it's up because the police have been given the word not to engage the way they engaged in the past. And I think there's a cost to that, to the consequence to that, and we're seeing it.
Kristine.
I first of all wanted to thank you for your service to our country, not just as a leader in the field of law enforcement, but also as a U.S. Marine. Why, I've always wanted to ask you this question, why did you decide not to head the FBI? Do you just have an aversion to politics?
No, I don't think that's a political position. What happened is I had, this is in 1993, I had just become police commissioner. I was the product of the organization. I loved the department, and it was just a few months before I received that call, I had just become police commissioner. So it was sort of too soon for me. And, Mayor Jenkins had appointed me. He was running for re-election. I thought it was important that I try to support him. There were a lot of things that I wanted to do, and I just hadn't had the chance to do it. It was right after the first World Trade Center attack, so I just sort of felt I should stick around. But the FBI is a great organization, and they chose Louis Freeh, and he did a great job.
We're talking to Ray Kelly. Is the former New York City Police Commissioner. Legendary fellow, I have to say. And the book is Vigilance, My Life Serving America and Protecting Its Empire City. Yes, being at the helm of the FBI versus New York City, it's a pretty amazing task to have the job as Commissioner of Police in New York City.
Yeah, I was very fortunate. I was in the department for, when I was chosen to be the commissioner the first time, I had 30 years. And then I was commissioner for about 18 months. I left. I then went to Haiti for 6 months with the U.S. intervention there. I became Undersecretary of Treasury for Enforcement in the Clinton administration. And then after that, I went to a private sector for a short period of time. Mike Bloomberg asked me to come back as police commissioner, and 12 years for that. And it was just a great experience for me. As I say, I love the organization. I was in 25 different assignments in the police department, so I had a lot of experience. And when I was asked to be commissioner the second time, I had that federal government time under my belt. So I think that all helps me in sort of forging a plan to help better protect the city, certainly as far as terrorism is concerned.
Well, you're looking, we just passed another Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. I mean, the millions of people that visit New York City, Times Square, New Year's Eve. I mean, you have so many moments. Just a normal day is a security nightmare in New York City, but then you have these enormous events that are perfect targets for bad people.
Yeah, the volume is tremendous in New York, but you have a large police department to address it. There's over 54,000 employees now in NYPD. It's almost 19,000 civilian employees out of that 54,000. So there's a big force, and over time you build up a fair amount of expertise to do these things. Yeah. Because you learn from experience. So New York is unlike any other city. But many of the things that are done in New York are done, throughout America.
Sure. Okay, in the book, you say that the Eric Garner video was difficult to watch. And now we have so many other cases, and there's, body cams, and there are cameras everywhere, it seems. What did you mean by that, difficult to watch? And what are your thoughts about these other cases, Chicago, for instance?
Well, it was just that. It was difficult to watch. What I say in the book is we don't see the whole video.
Right.
It's cut. And what I would have liked to have known is what the grand jury was told. What were their instructions? What did they do? What did they see? I think it would have been helpful for everybody if that was made public, but it wasn't. As far as these other incidents are concerned, I mean, the shooting in Chicago and the shooting in North Charleston, South Carolina, were simply murders. I mean, there's no other way to categorize. There's no rationale, no excuse for it. I know from my own experience that the vast majority of police officers are good people. They do a great job. They do a dangerous job. every day. But there are going to be some people who shouldn't be carrying a gun, who shouldn't be in policing. I think we have to do, as a profession, a much better job of selecting those that we give this awesome power to.
Yeah.
And I also say that I think police officers should have a 4-year college degree. It's not the panacea, but I think the job has become much more complex, much more demanding, and I think it's reasonable to expect that, particularly when virtually every teacher in America is required to have a 4-year college degree. Yet we don't require police officers to have it.
It's become,
changes have to be made. We have to do a much better job of drilling down on people's personality defects. I say in the book that, what is the effect of someone who we give a gun and badge to, who's been bullied or is a bully? I don't know. I don't know what that is, but we need, I think, as a society, answers to these types of questions. We need better selection.
I have to tell you that last night, of course, we found out overnight that Rahm Emanuel had fired the police chief there in Chicago. And, in that video that we saw part of the video, yet there is a big chunk of that video that came up missing. It took so long for that to come out. If you got the call and decided to take on Chicago, how would you clean up that mess?
Well, first let me say that Gary McCarthy worked for me, and I think he is a consummate law enforcement professional. Being a police chief these days is sort of a high-wire act. Decisions are made, political decisions are made that obviously impact on your career and your life. You really have to drill down to see what the issues are. I know the Mayor Emanuel has put a panel in place headed by DeVal and Patrick. You really need, I think, professionals to look at it and get a sense of what's right and what's wrong. Chicago is the second biggest police department it's the second biggest police department in the country, over 12,000 police officers. So it's a big operation. It's a city that has historically a lot of crime.
So do you think Emanuel was wrong to dismiss him?
I think that's the way,
Somebody had to go, it almost seemed like,
He needed to do something. He just couldn't sit there. So, Gary was the person here who suffered from it. I have to say, I know he's a top-flight professional. There's so many things you can control and other things you simply can't control.
I know it sounds odd, and I didn't see this in your book at all, but about winning police departments at one time had the hearts and the minds of the people. They really we looked on police officers as people that saved us. For God's sakes, after 9/11, it was a time where we really respected law enforcement and firefighters. How have we lost that? And how do you gain the trust back of these certain portions of our society?
Well, I don't think it's as bad as it is in terms of losing the trust. I mean, certainly from when I started, over 40 years ago, the relationship between the police and the communities is much closer now. You have, in the communities of color, you have much more diversity in the police force. And every police chief is trying every day to improve relations. But the nature of the business, police are the bearers of bad news. They use force, as we've seen. They sometimes use deadly force. They can use it inappropriately. So it's a constant issue. There's always going to be some friction, unfortunately. You try to work on it every day. I do think that the adoption of body cameras is going to make a difference in terms of bringing back community trust. I think I wasn't always on board with that, but after the shooting in North Charleston, South Carolina, you have to think that no rational person wearing a body camera that was functioning would engage in conduct like that. So there are lots of issues out there as far as cameras are concerned. Where do you store it? Who has access to it? When do they have access to it? I understand all of that.
You think it'd be better if those cameras automatically went on when a police officer engaged somehow? It seems like we have technology for everything else. Because there are those times where if a police officer wants to not engage, turn the camera on, he could do that.
Yeah. Well, also there are some situations where you don't necessarily want it on. I think you have to leave some discretion with the police officer. Somebody's giving you information, They don't want to give it when the camera is on.
Sure.
You go to a domestic dispute, of their privacy violation there that impact on the situation. I think that if you have it go on automatically, probably not a bad idea. But the question is, how do you trigger it? And when
Sure.
you trigger
Yeah.
it?
Yeah.
Can you control that?
At the end of the day, as much as these cameras protect the people, we've talked to plenty of police officers. I truly believe they protect the police officer.
Yeah, no, you have a point because you'll see these YouTube videos that start in the middle.
Yeah.
You see police struggling with somebody on the ground or whatever, and you haven't seen what precipitated it. You don't see the whole event. People are editing what they put on the internet. Now, with the police video, you at least potentially have the ability to look at the entire incident from beginning to end. So I think you're right. That could be, helpful for a police officer, and I believe that you'll see so much more benefit.